Rivermount, Georgia. 6:58 a.m. The morning fog still clung to the rooftops. Along the main boulevard, cafes were just opening, and bank employees were preparing for a new day. At Fulton Central branch, the largest and busiest location of Sterling Crest Bank, the automatic lighting system had just flickered on. A gleaming plaque at the main entrance displayed the bank's mission: committed to service, equality for every customer. The glass doors slid open. A black woman in her early 40s stepped inside. Her hair was neatly tied up, her face bare without makeup. She wore a light grey fall coat, faded jeans and worn sneakers. Slung over her shoulder was an old canvas bag, its strap frayed with use. No one noticed, no staff member greeted her, not a single eye turned in her direction. Only the silent surveillance camera recorded her entrance, calm, composed, but with a storm brewing just behind her eyes. She took a numbered slip from the dispenser and sat down on one of the hard plastic chairs in the customer waiting area. Her gaze moved slowly, scanning every teller, every employee, noting how they bent forward to greet, to chat, or to ignore. She took it all in. No one in the lobby knew that this woman was Nia Ellington, the newly appointed CEO of Sterling Crest Bank, the very woman who had quietly saved 2 near-bankrupt branches within the past year. But today she hadn't come as a leader. She had come for one purpose only: to personally verify the quiet, persistent complaints of discrimination within the very system she now led. At exactly 7:05 a.m., Nia looked up at the waiting screen. Her number was 47. But as the numbers were called, one by one, none of them were hers. And from that moment, a CEO's silent investigation began. Without a blazer, without a business card, armed only with the truth and a pair of eyes that refused to be deceived by appearances, 7:10 a.m. Nia Ellington had been sitting quietly in the waiting area for over 10 minutes. In her hand was ticket number 47. Neat, clearly printed, but utterly meaningless within the hierarchy she was now observing. No one checked on her, no one called her name, not a single kind glance came her way. A tall white man, graying at the temples, wearing a grey suit and a Rolex, pushed the door open. He didn't take a number, he didn't wait in line. Linda, the blonde receptionist, stood up immediately, beaming. "Good morning, Mr. Miller. VIP room as usual. Coffee or bottled water today?" Less than 30 seconds later, he was escorted into a private room. Nia didn't turn her head. She simply noted the way a single smile, a soft voice, could draw an invisible line between the preferred customer and everyone else. 7:16 a.m. An Asian couple entered. The wife walked slowly, holding her husband's hand. Linda looked up at them for exactly 1 second. No smile, no question. She pointed wordlessly toward the far end of the room. "Take a number over there. Wait to be called." No one offered to help. No VIP room, no warmth, only cold distance, and a silence sharp enough to cut. 7:22 a.m. A blonde woman in a blue and white plaid dress, bright red lipstick and clicking heels entered. Linda lit up instantly. "Sophie, babe, where's the picnic this weekend? You look amazing." Sophie laughed back like an old friend. Just 3 minutes later, she walked out of the service counter with a loyalty voucher in hand. Nia glanced at the worn canvas bag on her own shoulder, then at Linda. She understood, more clearly than ever. Discrimination didn't need to be spoken. It showed up in every look, every smile, every calculated silence. 7:37 a.m. A Latino man entered, his work shirt stained with paint. He sat down near Nia. When his turn came, he handed his ID to Philip Graves, the lead teller. Philip's tone was stiff, interrogative. "What do you do for work? What's this withdrawal for? Do you have an employment contract? Where is your company located?" The man had to sign 2 extra verification forms and was grilled for over 10 minutes, just to withdraw a few $100s. Nia didn't take notes, but every question, every stare, every furrowed brow, she logged them all as living data in her mind. Because injustice didn't always come with violence, it came with invisibility, with being seen as someone who didn't belong in good service, simply because of appearance, skin color, or silence. And now, the very woman who had once saved this system from collapse was experiencing firsthand what thousands of minority customers had endured for years. As more white customers were called ahead of her, Nia gave a slight nod. "All right," she thought, "this loop has run long enough, and I came here to break it." 7:48 a.m. Finally, a cold voice echoed from behind the counter. "Number 47, window 4. Nia stood up. No one looked up. No one smiled. Behind the glass at counter 4 sat Rachel Moore, early 30s, blonde hair tied back, fingers tapping the keyboard, but her eyes never met the customer. Nia sat down and calmly placed 3 items on the glass counter: a government-issued ID, a Sterling Crest Bank debit card, a withdrawal slip with a clearly written amount, $75,000. Her voice was steady. "I'd like to withdraw this from my personal account. All the necessary documents are right here." Rachel glanced over the form, her gaze freezing when it landed on the name Nia Ellington. A flicker of recognition crossed Rachel's face, suspicion mingled with disbelief, as if the name rang a bell, but couldn't possibly be that person. Instead of proceeding with the transaction, Rachel lowered her voice, speaking as if she were handling a potential fraud. "I need to verify something. Please remain seated." She glanced at the next counter. A small nod was exchanged. And then Philip Graves, head teller, approached. Philip was a tall, clean-cut man in his 40s. Tight tie, neatly groomed. He looked Nia up and down as if scanning a package missing a tracking number. He leaned toward Rachel and spoke just loudly enough for the surrounding area to hear. "That's a large amount. Any unusual activity on the account?" Heads began to turn toward window 4. A young male customer who had been seated near Nia, Liam Chen, a junior banking associate, muttered just loud enough, "Doesn't look like someone who'd have an account like that." A soft scoff came from behind. The air in the bank thickened, like a fogged-up pain suffocating all dignity. Rachel hesitated. She didn't answer Philip directly, just slid Nia's ID gently toward him. Philip examined it. The name Nia Ellington was clear, but instead of recognizing it, he frowned, searching for what was wrong. He turned back, his tone sharp. "What do you do for a living, ma'am?" Nia replied, unshaken, "All of my documentation is in order. You're welcome to check the account." But Rachel interjected, now with a tone bordering on interrogation. "May I ask what this amount is for? Can you provide proof of where the funds came from?" A freezing silence. Nia didn't flinch, didn't raise her voice. She simply removed her thin gloves, looked Philip directly in the eyes and said, "I'm here to withdraw my own money, nothing more." But to those behind the glass, she was no longer a customer. She had become a question mark, a shadow, a threat. And Nia knew the real test had only just begun. 8:02 a.m. The air around counter 4 thickened like invisible smoke. Nearby, customers kept staring, some discreetly opened their phone cameras. Philip Graves stood upright, placing his hands on the counter like asserting dominance. His voice rang out clearly, intentionally loud. "I need further verification. This transaction shows signs of irregularity." He turned to Rachel Moore. "Log into the customer's file, check account history, signature on file, and flag status in the system." Rachel tapped the keyboard, but her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from unease. Something felt wrong, but she didn't dare speak. At the waiting area, Liam Chen, the junior banker with a habit of muttering behind people's backs, leaned over and muttered, "Wonder where someone like that gets $75,000. Government grant?" A middle-aged customer nearby chuckled, glancing at Nia with a mix of pity and disdain. Nia Ellington remained upright, unblinking. She wasn't just in a bank anymore. She was at the eye of a silent storm, in a system where skin color, clothing, and demeanor defined how people treated her. Not the name on her account. Philip returned, file in hand. He glanced at it, then raised his head and spoke, deliberately loud enough for the room to hear. "Can you confirm your occupation, ma'am? Or provide a specific reason for withdrawing such a large sum in cash?" Nia responded, her gaze sharp as a blade. "I'm not obligated to explain if my account is valid and my documents are in order. That's still the law, isn't it?" Philip forced a smile, but his eyes darkened. "We're simply following protocol. If you refuse to cooperate, we'll have to escalate this to management." Rachel Moore glanced at Nia, then lowered her head, hands clasped. She was beginning to realize this woman wasn't just any customer, and what was happening had crossed a moral line. As for Nia, she knew. The next few moments would unmask the system. She didn't have to do anything, only remain silent at the right time and remember everything. All security cameras were recording, all eyes were watching, and every question was a scalpel slicing into the bank's truth. 8:08 a.m. This was no longer a routine withdrawal. It had become an unnamed interrogation, right in the center of Sterling Crest, a bank once proud of its slogan, "We honor every customer." Philip Graves leaned closer over the counter. His voice was now that of an officer in an interrogation room. "What's your primary source of income? Do you have an employment contract? Do you have documentation explaining the purpose of this withdrawal? Any recent deposits from unclear sources?" Nia Ellington kept her gaze steady. Her responses were concise, clear, unfazed. "I run my own business. No violation of any personal banking regulations. All documents have already been provided to you. And there are no flags on my account, correct?" Rachel Moore sat behind her screen. Each time she thought of speaking up, of saying the system showed everything was valid, Philip's stare stopped her cold. Rachel's silence was no longer neutral. It was complicity. At the next counter, Liam Chen continued his jabs to a colleague. Probably her first time in a big bank. "Bet she's taking pictures to flex this on Facebook." A few employees snickered. A few customers frowned. But no one stood up. Nia saw it all. She wasn't surprised. She had read reports about Fulton Central branch. She had heard the complaints from Black, Asian, and Latinx clients. But today, this wasn't data or second-hand accounts. Today was real. The breath of discrimination pressing against her skin. Philip delivered his final blow, polished but laced with contempt. "Honestly, if you're uncomfortable, you could withdraw a smaller amount, just to be safe." A thinly veiled way of saying, "You don't deserve that much money." Nia didn't respond. She unlocked her phone, tapped the voice recorder app, and set it silently on the counter. She didn't need to shout, she just needed the truth. Every word, every look, every silence documented. The interview ended there, not because there was a final answer, but because what came next would spiral beyond their control. 8:15 a.m. No one was laughing anymore. No more whispering either. The entire lobby of Fulton Central felt vacuum-sealed of air as Victoria Green, the branch manager, stepped out from behind the frosted glass office door. Her high heels struck the white stone floor in cold, deliberate rhythm. A fitted charcoal grey dress clung sharply to her frame. Her eyes were icy, her voice flat and emotionless. "What's going on here?" Philip immediately stepped forward and whispered a few words. Victoria glanced at Nia, just once, then turned to scan the staff and customers as if they were all nothing but inconveniences. Large cash withdrawal, unclear source, suspicious behavior, non-compliant. Victoria did not ask Nia a single question, no request for verification, no inquiry for explanation. She simply gave the order, cold and final. "Call security, escort her out. Sterling Crest does not serve that type of customer." Silence, then murmurs. A few jaws dropped. An elderly woman gripped the armrest of her chair. A young black man in the corner shook his head subtly. No one dared intervene. But their eyes began to change. Brandon Lee and Ethan Clark, the two security officers, stepped forward, uniforms crisp, right hands hovering near their belts. One of them gently but firmly placed a hand on Nia's arm. "We're sorry, ma'am. We need you to leave the premises." No explanation, no opportunity to be heard, not a flicker of doubt that they might be in the wrong. But Nia didn't pull her arm away. She slowly turned and looked directly at Victoria Green. Her voice was low and steady, but rang out with perfect clarity. "I have not caused a disturbance. I am simply requesting to complete a legal transaction. If you must lay hands on me, then let someone higher up hear this." She reached into her canvas bag and pulled out an old slide phone, quickly dialing a number. "Marcus Langford, I'm being denied a basic right at Fulton Central. Are you hearing this?" Nia's voice rang out evenly through the old speakerphone. Not loud, but clear enough for the entire lobby to hear. There was a brief pause on the other end, then a deep, sharp male voice. "Loud and clear, stay where you are. I'll take care of it." Victoria Green smirked, arms crossed, her eyes dripping with condescension. "Oh, calling for backup. Ma'am, I'm afraid no matter who you call, it won't change the fact that—" Silence stretched thin. Customers began to pull out their phones. A few started recording discreetly. Rachel Moore stood frozen, eyes red. Liam Chen began stepping back. No more jokes. And then a chill ran down everyone's spine. They had just witnessed something all too familiar. But this time it couldn't hide. A system abusing its power. Without realizing they'd just touched the one person who held the highest power. A chime sounded from Nia's phone. A new message. She glanced at it and nodded slightly. Meanwhile, on the top floor of Sterling Crest Tower, the bank's headquarters, in a glass-walled office overlooking all of Rivermount, Marcus Langford, Chief Operating Officer, cancelled all meetings. He stood tall, voice cold. "Pull the live feed from Fulton Central, full screen. Get Robert Whitford, legal and HR, in the room. Now." Within 90 seconds, an emergency board was convened. On the main monitor, the live footage showed Nia Ellington, their own CEO, being cornered by security and a branch manager barking orders at her. A young advisor stammered, "Oh my God, They don't know who she is. Robert Whitford, chairman of the board, narrowed his eyes, his voice steel. They'll find out, and so will the whole industry. Back at Fulton Central, Nia pocketed her phone. No expression, no tears. Just silence, and a strange calm, as if she had just ignited a chain reaction that could not be undone. Rachel Moore quietly backed away from her desk, visibly shaken. Liam Chen pretended to sort paperwork, hands trembling. Victoria remained unfazed, signaling Brandon and Ethan again, "Take her out." But Brandon Lee, the security guard, hesitated. He looked at Nia, then at his own hand resting on her arm. He pulled it back. Ethan Clark turned to Victoria and murmured, "She's not resisting. Are we sure about this?" Victoria reiterated the order. The two guards were just about to escort Nia out when the sound of footsteps echoed from the main doors. A man in a sharp black suit entered, eyes radiating authority. Marcus Langford. He didn't greet anyone. He simply held up a folder, filled with printouts of the live camera feed playing at headquarters. His voice rang through the lobby, strong and unshakable. "Allow me to introduce everyone. This is Nia Ellington, Chief Executive Officer of Sterling Crest Bank." Silence. Then, collapse. The entire lobby froze. Victoria Green went pale. Philip Graves stood frozen in place. Liam Chen stumbled backward, nearly knocking over a counter. Rachel Moore broke into tears. Customers began pulling out phones, live streaming, recording, sharing. A new hashtag began to trend. Justice at Sterling Crest. I stand with Nia. Marcus Langford remained at the center of the lobby. The folder in his hand was no longer just paperwork. It was evidence. An indictment. "The entire board of directors is watching this live," he said, including Chairman Robert Whitford. "Every word, every action has been recorded." The air in the lobby compressed, like a storm trapped in a bottle. Victoria Green stood petrified, her lips pressed tight, but her face had gone pale. Philip Graves lowered his head, eyes darting as if searching for an escape route in a room with no doors. Liam Chen trembled, turned away pretending to fetch papers, but everyone saw it. His hands held nothing but shame. Rachel Moore stood motionless. The first tear slid down her cheek. Customers, ignited like a smoldering fire, suddenly fed with air. An elderly black woman stood up, tears glistening in her eyes. "I've been banking here over 15 years, and not once was I offered a glass of water. Today, thanks to you, I finally see the truth." A young father holding his child raised his phone to record, his voice shaking. "She's the CEO, and they still treated her like that. Then how bad do they treat the rest of us?" A young staffer wearing an intern badge stood up, his voice quivering. I once saw a customer turned away because he wore a construction uniform. I was scared to speak up. But now, I won't stay silent anymore." Nia Ellington said nothing. She simply looked around at each person, staff and customer alike. Her face held no anger, only a burning clarity in her eyes. Then she stepped forward, locking eyes with Rachel Moore. "You saw, you knew, and you stayed silent. Do you want to keep living that way?" Rachel broke down in tears, no excuses, no defenses. The truth was no longer theoretical. It was moving through the room like a current, waking everyone it touched. Phones buzzed non-stop. The hashtag number sign, Justice at Sterling Crest, was now spreading beyond the glass walls. One customer still filming whispered, "You don't see a CEO stand up like this every day. Not from the office." but right on the front lines. Marcus took another step forward and read aloud, "By order of Chairman Whitford, I hereby announce Branch Manager Victoria Green, immediately suspended. Head Teller Philip Graves, suspended. Employee Liam Chen, suspended. An independent investigation team will arrive within 24 hours. Applause erupted from the corner of the room. At first, just one person, then two, then the entire lobby. No one said thank you out loud, but every look, every raised hand was a silent thank you echoing far and wide. Nia gave a quiet nod. I don't stand here because I'm the CEO. I stand here for the thousands who never got the chance to stand at all. The atmosphere inside Fulton Central had shifted, no longer tense, but suffocating. Yet that silence wasn't rooted in fear anymore. It was the collective anticipation of who would dare to speak the next truth. Nia Ellington stood there, not on a podium, no spotlight, just standing among the people. No one saw her as a plainly dressed woman anymore, but as the woman who dared to expose a truth everyone had long been afraid to face. A middle-aged Asian woman stepped forward from the seating area, her voice trembling. I was once denied a loan here, because the purpose was unclear, even though I brought all the documents. The staff didn't explain, just shook their heads and said, "It's policy." A brown-skinned college student nervously called out, "They made me verify my scholarship twice, while my white friend only had to sign his name." The customers spoke up, but then it was the staff's turn. Rachel Moore stepped out from behind the counter, eyes swollen, hands still trembling. She stood right beside Nia, choked with emotion, then bowed her head. I saw it, more than once, and I did nothing, because I thought if I wasn't the one making the decisions, then it wasn't my fault. She looked up, for the first time, not as a teller but as a human being finding courage. But I was wrong, and if I don't say this today, then I am part of the problem. Nia placed a hand gently on Rachel's shoulder. Her nod wasn't forgiveness, it was acknowledgement. You just started over, right now. Liam Chen backed away, face pale. Marcus looked at him, said nothing, just raised a hand. Do you have something to say? Liam swallowed hard, then stammered. I didn't think it was that serious. I thought it was just joking around. A cold wave swept through the room. Nia asked, if it wasn't serious, then why didn't you say that to my face earlier? Liam didn't respond. He bowed his head and walked straight out the side exit, leaving behind only the whispers of disappointment. Just then, a young black boy, about 13 years old, walked up with his mother. He tugged on Nia's sleeve and looked up. Are you really the one in charge of this bank? Nia crouched down, smiling. I'm the one responsible for it. The boy pressed further. So, after today, is it gonna be different? Nia looked around the lobby, a place that had crushed countless hopes with nothing more than a raised eyebrow or a suspicious glance. It has to be. If not, I don't deserve to sit in that CEO chair. And then, not from one person, but from the entire room, applause erupted. Not the kind that signals the end, but the kind that marks a beginning. A breaking point of trust. A moment that redefined service, humanity, and the very system itself. Nia stepped into the center of the room. No microphone, no stage. Just her voice, clear, deep, and cutting straight to the core of everyone who had ever been deemed unfit. Today, I'm not firing anyone, because each of you is revealing your own truth. And starting tomorrow, I will change how this bank treats human beings. 8:30 a.m., Sterling Crest Bank headquarters, 28th floor, the main boardroom. Natural light streamed through the tall glass windows overlooking the city of Rivermount. There was no podium, no presentation slides, just a long table where dozens of branch managers, department heads and senior advisors sat waiting. The door opened. Nia Ellington entered, not with an air of authority, but with eyes that left no room for compromise. She didn't take the seat at the head of the table. She stood, right in the center. I didn't invite you here for an apology. I invited you to help me defuse the bomb we ourselves planted under the trust of our customers. No one spoke. A few eyes avoided her gaze. Some clasped their hands tensely. Nia nodded at her assistant. A video began playing on the large screen behind her. Footage from the day before at Fulton Central, from the moment Nia sat waiting to the interrogation, to the reveal of her identity. Some turned their faces away, others flushed red. Not a single person dared to interrupt. When the video ended, the boardroom was steeped in silence. Nia continued, her voice steady but resonant. I've read the reports, I've heard the complaints. But yesterday was the first time I felt that injustice in my own skin. And the most painful part, it wasn't the actions of a few, it was the complicity of silence. She opened a folder and pulled out 3 documents. Suspension orders for Victoria Green, Philip Graves, and Liam Chen. Temporary 72-hour closure of the Fulton Central branch for internal restructuring. Launch of an open response initiative. Voice of the branches, allowing employees and customers to anonymously report misconduct. The atmosphere began to shift. A black branch director, Mr. Thomas Doyle, quietly spoke up. I once wanted to speak out, but this system didn't make room for someone like me to step forward. If you're willing to do this today, I will stand with you. From South Haven branch, I commit, we'll launch this program first. An Asian American woman, the regional director of the West, placed her hand on the table. I'd like to form a special local team to collect direct feedback from immigrant customers. They've been overlooked long enough. Nia smiled for the first time during the meeting. Thank you, but this is not yet reform. This is only the beginning of awakening. That afternoon, back at headquarters, Nia sat alone in her office, gazing down at the city below. She opened her laptop and began typing her first email to the entire network. Subject line: if yesterday was a shock, then today must be the change. Email body: I am Nia Ellington, and I will read every word you send. Because there is no longer room for silence at Sterling Crest. 3 days after Fulton Central closed its doors, no more hurried footsteps, no long lines of customers. The branch lobby sat empty, the waiting chairs vacant, except for a single wooden table placed in the center with a modest nameplate. Special feedback desk, real people, real stories. Sitting beside it were Rachel Moore and Mrs. Ruth Simmons, a black woman with graying hair, a longtime employee who had witnessed countless customers being brushed off, and once believed she was too small to change anything. Ruth sat upright, glasses on, turning through each feedback form. Some were written in messy handwriting, others were printed digital forms from rural communities, but all began the same way. I used to think I was treated that way because I wasn't good enough. I stayed silent for 6 years, afraid no one would believe me. That day I saw her being humiliated, and I didn't say anything. Inside a small meeting room at the branch, Ruth was now training new employees. Rachel sat beside her, for the first time, not as someone who simply followed procedure, but as someone who now shared what she'd learned. Ruth spoke. None of us were born perfect, but if you see something wrong and stay silent, then you're helping it happen. Rachel continued, her voice gentle but clear. I used to fear losing my job if I spoke up, but I learned this from my own CEO. Silence is never neutral. At another branch, a scene unfolded. A Latino customer, Mr. Luis Herrera, stood at the counter, holding a $500 withdrawal slip. He hesitated. A young teller stepped out, smiling warmly. How can I help you today, Mr. Herrera? The older man choked up. He said only one thing. It's the first time in 9 years I've been greeted by my name. Back at headquarters, Nia was receiving emails from various branches. A Kentucky branch proposed adding phone charging stations at waiting areas for elderly clients. A New Jersey branch launched a silent customer day, dedicated to those with hearing impairments or communication disorders. A small Native American branch submitted a video of staff greeting customers in the local tribal language. Nia read each message carefully, took notes on every idea. Then she opened a handwritten letter from a security guard. Brandon Lee. I couldn't stop the order that day, but I let go at the right moment, and I'm asking to transfer to the security training division, so people like me never again lay hands on someone without cause. Nia stood in front of a mirror, refastening her name tag, Nia Ellington, CEO. She nodded softly to her own reflection. Change doesn't begin with the strongest. It begins with those who dare to stand first. The yellow school bus pulled up in front of the glass building that housed the Sterling Crest Bank headquarters. The 13-year-old black boy from that day, the one who had tugged Nia's sleeve and asked, after what happened today, will this bank change? Stepped down with his mother. He wore a neatly tucked white shirt. His sneakers were worn, the fabric frayed, but his eyes were bright. Nia was already waiting by the door, not with an entourage, not with PR staff, just herself, wearing a light blue coat and a simple scarf. She bent down to shake his hand. Hello, sweetheart. It was your question that reminded me I needed to do even more. She handed him a silver envelope. Inside was a plastic card, simply designed, with his name printed alongside the words, Honorary Card, youngest honorary member of Sterling Crest. Every time you use this card, we'll remember the day we began to change. The boy looked up at his mother. She gripped his hand tightly, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. Nia knelt beside him and whispered, Grown-ups might forget, but kids like you are why we're not allowed to. In the ground floor atrium, the very place that had once been the epicenter of outrage, a large photo now hung on the wall. Nia bending down, smiling as she handed the card to the boy. Below it, a single caption, The future doesn't begin with promises. It begins when a child believes the world is willing to listen. At other branches, a replica of the honorary card was displayed next to the welcome desks. Staff would tell the story to young visitors that if they ever saw something unfair, they could speak up, and this bank would listen. During a press interview, a journalist asked Nia, Do you think changing an entire system is too much to start with a child? She smiled, Because when adults go silent, children are the ones who ask the questions for us. A new door had opened, not just for that boy, but for an entire generation who, for the first time, saw a powerful institution bend down to their eye level and call them by name. On the official homepage of Sterling Crest Bank, a new headline was published in bold, We don't make promises, we change. Just below it was the full outline of the newly launched reform program, titled Dignity First. This was not a vague ethical code. It listed specific prohibited behaviors. It set clear internal policies on conduct. It included detailed evaluation metrics, not on how employees handled numbers, but on how they treated people. Every employee, from front desk clerks to regional directors, was now required to attend a 72-hour retraining program. No online modules, no easy signatures. They had to sit down, in person, to listen, face to face, to real people who had once suffered discrimination. Not through a screen, but through real eyes and real voices. At Fulton Central, the branch once shut down due to internal crisis, the program launched first. Everything had been reorganized. Reception desks were placed in the center of the lobby with no barriers. Seating was redesigned, low enough to accommodate seniors and persons with disabilities. Signs were reprinted, this time not just as slogans, but as legal commitments. Refusal of service due to bias is grounds for immediate termination. Behind the transaction counter stood Ruth Simmons, the woman who had once spent 20 quiet years simply doing her job. She was now officially appointed as Ethics Advisor for Customer Service, Southeast Region. Rachel Moore, who had once remained silent during injustice, was now assigned to train new hires, using her own story as a cautionary tale. A group of customers walked in. None of them were used to being offered water, being greeted by name, being asked if they needed extra assistance. Some hesitated, as if unsure how to accept kindness that came without conditions. Ruth smiled gently. "Feels strange, doesn't it? But you'll get used to it. Because this is how we should have treated you from the very beginning." Upstairs, in the headquarters' top floor, Nia stood before a system-wide feedback dashboard. The number of complaints had dropped, but the number of positive submissions had skyrocketed. One message read, "For the first time, I saw a bank bow to its customers, not out of apology, but out of principle." Nia turned to her team. "We can't erase the past, but we can make the present worth remembering." No new slogan was needed, no long speeches required, just one thing, a system brave enough to begin again, not with words, but with action. 1 week later, the video from Fulton Central spread across all major social media platforms. Not through advertising, not through paid media placements. It simply resonated because the story struck a chord that millions of people carried quietly within them. The feeling of being dismissed for not looking like an ideal customer. The hashtag #Justice at Sterling Crest trended at #1 for 3 consecutive days. But it didn't stop there. A major financial newspaper ran the headline, "Bank CEO goes undercover as a regular customer and forces the system to reckon with itself." A prime-time newscast opened with an image of Nia Ellington sitting in the customer waiting area holding an old canvas bag. A national television station invited her to appear live, but she declined. Instead, Nia sent a short statement, "I'm not trying to be a hero, I'm just trying to do the job of someone who's accountable," turning the right to be respected into something default. At other banks across the US, internal meetings were called. Some branches rushed to review surveillance footage and revisit unresolved complaints. Some directors began asking, if they could do it, why can't we? The National Civil Rights Commission sent an invitation for Sterling Crest to present their transparent feedback model, Voice of the Branches. A non-profit organization focused on financial equity published an op-ed that read, "We don't lack the technology. What we lack is the courage Nia Ellington showed. She gave no interviews, but at headquarters, Nia made a single request. From now on, every senior leadership meeting would open with 3 minutes of real customer stories. Not data, not charts, but real voices, real experiences, real names. So none of us forget that we run a bank for people, not a money printing machine. This system didn't change out of fear. It changed because someone stood up at the right moment. And when that happens, the ripple effect doesn't stay in the hands of media. It lands in the hands of every person who's ever felt invisible. At the main lobby of Fulton Central branch, everything has now been transformed. The reception desk is lower, level with customers who use wheelchairs. Employee name tags now include a line that says, "Languages spoken," for the hearing impaired and international visitors. At the very center of the lobby, exactly where the confrontation once unfolded, stands a single oak chair. High-backed, sturdy-legged, not polished but cleaned every morning. On its armrest is a small brass plaque engraved with one simple line, "For the first to be ignored, and the last who will be heard." The chair is not for staff, not for management. It is for any customer who feels they've been treated unfairly. When someone sits in that chair, all transactions in the lobby pause for 1 full minute, to listen, to respond, to correct mistakes on the spot, not via email, not through a hotline, but through presence, through eye contact, through immediate accountability. Nia Ellington visits the branch on the last Friday of each month. She doesn't sit in the conference room. She doesn't check reports. She simply takes a seat in that chair. No name tag, no announcement. One day, an elderly customer sat down in the chair. He wasn't angry. He didn't raise his voice. He simply handed Nia a wrinkled slip of paper. It was a transaction receipt, with his late wife's name misspelled. She had passed away a year prior. Nia didn't offer a scripted apology. She simply rose, bent low, and said, "Thank you for sitting here, and for giving us a chance to make it right." On social media, a photo of the chair went viral. One user wrote, "Not every bank has a CEO who's sat in your place." Another commented, "Maybe fairness doesn't come from the system, but from how the system treats each human being." As night falls, the lights of Fulton Central dim. Only a soft glow from the security lamp shines on that lone chair in the center of the room. No one sits in it, but its presence, quiet, enduring, is enough to remind everyone that here, no one is invisible, no one is forgotten, no one is dismissed anymore. And if someone walks in carrying an old wound, a mark from a memory, they will know that a seat is waiting, just for them. Some stories don't need a grand finale, they just need a single moment, where an ordinary person walks into a place that's long stopped being ordinary, and reclaims something that should have been given from the beginning: dignity. Nia Ellington didn't come to Fulton Central to be a hero. She didn't shout. She didn't slam her fist on the table. She didn't threaten anyone with power. She simply sat down, took a number, and waited, just like thousands of others once did. And in that silence, the truth spoke. This story isn't just about a bank. It isn't just about a wooden chair placed in the center of a lobby. It's about every place that forgot the people behind the numbers. Maybe you have never been denied service because your name was hard to pronounce. Maybe you have never been judged by your skin color, your clothes, or the neighborhood no one remembers. But maybe someone sitting next to you carries that wound every single day. If you've ever wished someone would stand up, now you've seen it. One person, one act, one system changed. And now, it's our turn.